Last month, I gave a presentation at work. It was in English. I prepared a lot. I knew all the right words. But when I started speaking, people looked confused. My accent was strong. Some words came out wrong. After the meeting, my manager said, "Your ideas are good, but your accent makes it hard to follow." That night, I felt terrible. I speak English, I told myself, but I don't sound natural. That was the moment I decided to change. I started looking for help online. There were so many videos. Speak like a native. Perfect your accent in 7 days. American versus British pronunciation. I tried repeating after YouTubers, recording my voice, watching TV shows with subtitles. But I still didn't sound right. Then I found something different, a podcast called Accent Coach Alex. His voice was smooth and clear. And his first words were, "If you want to change your accent, don't just copy, listen deeper." I listened to all his episodes. I took notes. He explained things no one else did: intonation, rhythm, mouth shape. Then I found out he was offering a short online course. It wasn't cheap, but I signed up. In our first Zoom call, he said, "Show me how you speak." I introduced myself nervously. He smiled kindly and said, "You're better than you think. Now let's train your ears." That's how my real journey began, not just learning English, but learning to hear it like a native. Alex told me, "English is music. You don't just speak it, you play it." He asked me to listen to a sentence from a movie. "I didn't know you were coming." He said, "Don't repeat the words. Repeat the melody." I listened again. The voice went up, then down, like waves. I copied it. It felt strange at first, almost like acting. But suddenly, the sentence sounded more natural. Alex smiled. "That's it. You're hearing it now." He introduced me to something called shadowing. You pick a video, repeat everything immediately after the speaker, like their shadow. At first, I chose slow videos, news, TED Talks. I spoke with them word by word, trying to match rhythm, tone, even pauses. It was hard. I got out of breath. But after a week, something changed. My tongue felt faster. My ears sharper. I recorded myself again, and for the first time, I didn't cringe. One day, Alex said, "Go stand in front of a mirror, say this, 'How's it going?'" I did. "Now, watch your mouth, your lips, your tongue." I laughed. "Do I have to?" "Yes," he said. "Sound is physical. If your mouth doesn't move like theirs, your voice won't sound like theirs." I practiced in front of that mirror every morning, smiling, stretching, exaggerating. My roommates thought I was crazy, but I knew I was getting better. One day, Alex said, "It's time to stop hiding behind practice. Go out and use English in real life." I felt nervous. Where should I go? Anywhere people speak English. A cafe, a bookstore, a market. So I went to a coffee shop downtown. When the barista said, "What can I get you?" I smiled and answered clearly, "Just a black coffee, please." It was a small thing, but I felt proud. I had spoken naturally, and no one looked confused. After that, I started speaking more. At work, I talked more in meetings. I stopped writing long emails and started walking over to people to talk. "Hey, do you have a minute?" I'd say. In the beginning, I felt slow and careful. But week by week, I stopped thinking about each word. People started saying, "Your English sounds more natural now." That was the best compliment I could hear. I realized I had to listen more, not just speak. I started noticing how people said things in everyday life. At the supermarket, in the elevator, even on the bus. I didn't copy them exactly, I just learned how English flowed in daily life. I kept a little notebook. When I heard someone say something interesting, I'd write it down. Phrases like, "no worries," or "I'm not sure yet," or "that makes sense." These were the phrases that made my English feel real. Not from textbooks, from life. One morning at work, I said to a colleague, "I did the meeting yesterday." She smiled kindly and said, "You mean you had the meeting?" I felt embarrassed. But she added, "Don't worry. I still make mistakes in French all the time." That moment changed something in me. I stopped being afraid of mistakes. Each one became a small lesson. Every time I said something wrong, I corrected myself and moved on. It felt like freedom. Alex suggested keeping a daily language journal. "Write one short entry every day in English," he said. So I did. I wrote about simple things, what I did, what I felt, what I planned. I had a long day today. The meeting went well. I need to buy groceries. Some days I didn't know how to express something. So I searched for the right words and learned them. Little by little, writing became easier, and my speaking improved too. Because now I was thinking in English. One evening my phone rang. It was a customer from Canada calling about a project. Before, I would have passed the call to someone else. But this time I said, "I'll take it." We talked for 10 minutes. I answered questions, asked for details, and took notes. When the call ended, I realized I hadn't worried once about how I sounded. I was just communicating. That was the moment I knew I was no longer just learning English. I was living it. One day I noticed something strange. I was walking to the train station, planning my day in my head. But I wasn't thinking in my native language. I was thinking in English. What time is the meeting? Do I have time for coffee? It wasn't a decision. It just happened naturally. That made everything easier. Speaking, writing, even listening. Alex once said, "You become fluent not when you speak English, but when you live in English, even inside your mind." Now I finally understood what he meant. I started changing small things in my daily life. I switched my phone to English. I followed English-speaking accounts on social media. I joined an online book club where people discussed simple novels in English. We met once a week on Zoom. The first time, I only listened. The second time, I said a few words. By the fourth meeting, I was sharing full thoughts. No one laughed. No one corrected me rudely. They just listened. It felt like I was part of something real. I went back to an old habit, talking to myself. But this time it was different. I no longer said things like, "I want to improve." I said, "I am improving." I spoke while cooking, walking, doing laundry. It was simple. Okay, now I need to clean the table. Then I'll take a break. This became a quiet conversation with myself, comfortable, natural, honest. I didn't feel silly anymore. I felt like someone who really lives in the language. One evening, I met a tourist at a local event. She was from Australia and traveling alone. We started talking in English. At first, I was a little nervous, but the conversation flowed. We talked about food, places to visit, and travel stories. After an hour, she said, "Your English is really easy to understand. You sound natural." I smiled. That one sentence felt like a medal. Not because I sounded perfect, but because I was connecting with someone from another world. There was a time when speaking English felt like a test. Now, it felt like a tool, something I could use to read a new book, enjoy a documentary, or make a new friend. I stopped judging myself for small mistakes. Instead, I asked myself, did I express what I wanted? If the answer was yes, that was enough. I wasn't chasing a perfect accent anymore. I just wanted to be understood and to understand. That goal felt real, and it kept me going. One night, I opened my old journal and read the first entry. I want to sound better. I feel shy when I speak. I hope I don't give up. I smiled. So much had changed since I wrote those words. Not because I found a magic method, but because I kept going, step by step. If I could speak to that old version of me, I'd say, be patient. Be curious. Keep speaking. You're better than you think. And that's the truth. A few months later, I had to fly to another country for work. At the airport, everything was in English. Announcements, signs, conversations. Before, I would have stayed silent and just nodded. But this time, I asked for directions, ordered lunch, and even helped a confused traveler. "Excuse me, is this the line for passport check?" someone asked. "Yes, it is," I replied with a calm smile. That short moment reminded me how far I had come. English wasn't scary anymore. It felt like home. Sometimes I still didn't speak much. At parties or group events, I often stayed quiet, just listening. But now, it wasn't because I was afraid. It was because I was learning. I watched how people joked, how they told stories, how they used simple expressions like, "You're kidding," or "No way." I didn't write anything down. I just let it sink in. It was like watching life in a new language. And slowly, I became part of it. One afternoon, I was on the phone with a colleague. We spoke for about 20 minutes, planning a project. After we hung up, something hit me. The whole call was in English, and I didn't even notice. I hadn't translated, corrected myself, or worried about how I sounded. I was just talking. That was the moment I truly understood. Fluency doesn't mean speaking without mistakes. It means speaking without fear. One Saturday, I walked into a small English bookstore in the city. I had never been inside before, just passed by. This time, I went in. I picked up a book with a simple title, Things You Think About When You Bite Your Nails. I read the first few pages right there, standing. It felt easy, even fun. The words didn't feel foreign anymore. I bought it, went to a cafe, and read for 2 hours. Not to study English, just to enjoy a good story. I joined a local language group that met once a week at a nearby library. We weren't students, we were people with stories. A taxi driver from Morocco, a teacher from Poland, a retiree from Brazil. Each week, we picked a topic: travel, memories, food, dreams. We laughed, we struggled for words, we helped each other. And no one cared about mistakes. We cared about meaning. Those sessions became my favorite part of the week. Speaking English wasn't a goal anymore. It was a connection. One evening, Alex gave me an idea. Write a letter to your future self, all in English. Tell them where you are now and where you want to be. So I did. Dear me, I wrote. Right now, I still pause too much. I still feel unsure sometimes. But I speak, and I want to keep growing. I put the letter in a drawer and forgot about it. 3 months later, I read it again. And I smiled, because I had already become that person I hoped to be. One morning, I went to my favorite coffee shop. There was a man behind me in line, looking a bit lost. "Excuse me," he said, "could you help me find the sugar?" I smiled and pointed to the counter. He looked at me surprised. "Your English is so clear," he said. I laughed. "Thanks, it's a work in progress." He thanked me, and we exchanged a few more words about the weather. It was nothing special, just a small moment. But in that moment, I realized how far I had come. I wasn't just speaking English, I was using it without thinking. I had started writing again, but not just in my journal. I began writing short stories in English. Simple ones, like A Day at the Beach or A Rainy Afternoon. I didn't care if they were perfect or even interesting. The point was to get comfortable expressing my thoughts in English without editing myself too much. One day, I found a story I had written a few weeks ago. I read it again, and I was surprised. It was much better than I remembered. Without realizing it, my writing had improved too. I hadn't just worked on my speaking, I had built a language habit. It wasn't just about the language anymore. It was about how I felt when I spoke. Before, I was scared to make a mistake. Now, I welcomed them. I wasn't perfect, and that was okay. The real change was inside. I had stopped measuring my success by how I sounded. I measured it by how much I enjoyed the conversation, how much I connected. That shift in thinking was the final key. Fluency wasn't about speaking perfectly. It was about being comfortable with the process. And, at last, I felt truly comfortable. A few months later, I received a call from an international client. They were based in London, and I was tasked with helping them with a project. We spoke for an hour. The whole time, I didn't once feel the usual nervousness I used to. I answered questions, explained ideas, and discussed details. At the end of the call, the client said, "Thank you so much. Your English is very clear, and I really appreciate your help." I smiled to myself. I realized that the biggest compliment wasn't the words. It was the ease with which I had spoken. One night, I was sitting with a group of friends talking about travel plans. Someone asked, "What do you want to do next year?" I answered in English, without even thinking. Then I paused. It was the first time I'd spoken in English without translating it from my native language. I'd crossed a line I hadn't even noticed. For the first time, English had truly become my second language, not just a tool, but a part of how I thought and expressed myself, and it felt amazing. As I sat back and reflected on everything, I realized my journey wasn't just about learning English. It was about growing, stepping out of my comfort zone, and challenging myself every day. I had learned that language isn't just about words, it's about connecting with people. Now I think back to where I started. A shy, uncertain speaker, afraid to make mistakes. And I can't help but smile. Because now I don't just speak English, I live it. And I'm excited for what's next.